Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to pull out the key insights from a whole stack of sources, basically giving you the shortcut to be genuinely clued in. Today, we're diving deep into something huge, an event that's just, well, shaking things up dramatically. The fatal shooting of conservative commentator Charlie Kirk. The scene itself was just shocking. The public university, he's taking a question about gun violence, no less, and then, boom, chaos, screaming. A real tragedy. So our mission for you today is to go past that initial shock. We want to walk you through the details of what actually happened, and then unpack the reactions, which have been intense all over the place, really, across media, social platforms, and finally tackle the big questions this raises, about political violence, free speech, where America is heading in 2025. It feels volatile. We've gathered a lot for you: news reports, eyewitness stuff, opinion pieces, social media reactions. The works. The goal is to help you understand not just what went down, but why it's hitting so hard, and maybe what we can learn from it all.
That's exactly right. It's not just about listing facts. It's connecting those pieces, seeing the larger patterns. We really want to help you navigate through the sheer volume of noise out there and get a real handle on the societal impact of something like this, especially now with things being so polarized. So let's start right there with the event itself.
Okay, yeah. Let's break down the core incident. So Wednesday, September 10th, 2025. Charlie Kirk, 31 years old. He's a big name, right? Conservative influencer, founder of Turning Point USA. He was shot and killed. And this wasn't behind closed doors. It was a public event, Utah Valley University, UVU, out in Orem, Utah. Reports say he was actually mid-sentence taking a question about gun violence. He was under this tent labeled, almost unbelievably, American comeback.
Yeah, the eyewitness accounts, they're harrowing. They really paint a picture. People describe the single sharp gunshot and then just instantaneous panic, screams of, "Oh my God, run!" The crowd just scattered, total chaos. Witnesses saw Kirk go down, motionless. Reports mentioned significant bleeding from a neck wound. Yeah. And just to add to the horror, his wife and kids were there at the event. Thankfully, they weren't physically hurt, but imagine.
Just awful. And then things got complicated fast, right?
Yeah.
This video surfaced. It reportedly shows the suspected shooter lying prone on a roof, the loose center at UVU, like 200 yards away. But that kind of detail, that just immediately changes the whole conversation, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Instantly. The distance, the setup, it screams calculation, professionalism even. Yeah. That sparked all sorts of theories right away. And the police, well, they initially brought 2 people in.
Right, saw that.
But they were released pretty quickly. Police said they weren't suspects.
Which just fuels the speculation more, yeah.
Exactly. Was it a lone wolf? Was it something more organized? The Utah Department of Public Safety, they've officially called it a targeted political assassination. That's their term. So now the FBI's deep in it. They've put out photos of person of interest, offered a reward.
And the weapon.
Reportedly found, yes. And look, there's this one claim circulating too, you have to mention it because it's out there, about ammunition supposedly engraved with transgender anti-fascist ideology.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, whether that's verified or not, it just shows how quickly these incredibly charged narratives get injected into the mix.
That ammo detail, yeah, true or not, it's a perfect example of how fast the information battlefield forms.
Yeah.
But, okay, to really get why this hit so hard and why the reactions are so split, we need to understand Charlie Kirk himself. His rise was meteoric, wasn't it?
It really was. Famously skipped college, right?
Yeah.
Co-founded Turning Point USA, TPUSA, when he was just 18. And TPUSA became this major player in conservative youth politics very quickly. They were brilliant with digital media, campus tours, mobilizing young conservatives, basically a key pipeline into the Trump-aligned world for young people.
And his public image.
Yeah.
If deliberately provocative, from what our sources say, described as a master of the modern influence game, thrives on viral stuff, culture war fights. Yeah. What were some of the core views he pushed?
Well, they were strong views and often controversial. Yeah, unapologetically pro-Trump for starters, very critical of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion. He actually called it anti-white, which, caused a lot of backlash. Okay. Critics also point to dismissive comments about women, other marginalized groups. He was also a staunch defender of Israel, very critical of pro-Palestinian movements. And during COVID, a huge skeptic of the health measures, downplayed the pandemic, questioned vaccines, and of course, a major voice pushing those narratives, questioning the 2020 election results, the whole stolen election line. These weren't side issues for him. They were kind of central to his brand.
Yeah, it's quite the profile.
Exactly.
But he was hugely popular with young conservatives. So what was it about that image, that provocative stance, that connected so strongly, despite the controversy or maybe because of it?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Sources suggest that edge, that willingness to directly challenge what he saw as liberal groupthink. That's what resonated, especially with younger people who felt maybe alienated or ignored by the mainstream. He positioned himself as this authentic, fearless voice. Now, the flip side, critics argued he basically manufactured outrage for clicks, for political points, for profit, saying he blurred the lines between activism and just spreading disinformation. Some sources explicitly say he made a fortune preaching profiting off hate, bigotry, and right-wing extremism.
Wrong words.
Yeah. And you look at past statements like the 2020 election was stolen or calling mask mandates an excuse for government control. It was very direct, very uncompromising.
And the irony, him being killed during a discussion on gun violence, given his past statements, that hit people hard. He said in 2023 something like, it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year so that we can have the Second Amendment. And there were reports he'd bragged about not needing bulletproof glass for this event.
Yeah.
How did that stark contrast play out right after?
Oh, it was immediate. It became a huge theme in the reactions online. Social media just exploded. One source said the platforms just revved their engines. Speculation everywhere, but also this really dark sense of irony for many. The online chatter was like a snapshot of America's divisions, People arguing about the bullet's path next. Heart ricochet, arguing about video authenticity, whether the shooter was a pro. CNN's Abby Phillip even noted how disturbingly the algorithms were pushing videos of the actual shooting. It highlights that sort of uncontrolled, almost morbid spread of info.
And the political reactions. Predictably split, I imagine.
Completely. From the right, the framing was instant. Kirk as a martyr for truth and freedom. President Trump called it a dark moment for America, said he'd award Kirk the Presidential Medal of Freedom posthumously.
Wow, okay.
And others went further. Nancy Mace, a Republican figure, claimed Democrats own what happened today. No evidence offered, just straight to blame. Fox News' Jesse Waters even talked about reprisal. We're going to avenge Charlie's death. Everybody's accountable. That's activating that martyrdom playbook you mentioned, almost textbook style.
Yeah, explain that playbook a bit more for listeners who might not know the term.
Right. So the martyrdom playbook, politically speaking, it's basically when a public figure's death is immediately framed as this heroic sacrifice for their cause. It's a tactic, really. Used to rally the base, shut down criticism because who wants to seem disrespectful, and elevate the person's views, even the controversial ones, almost above question. On the left, though, the response was generally different. Yes, you had some individuals online saying things like you reap what you sow or expressing zero sympathy, but most prominent progressives, people like Barack Obama, Mehdi Hassan, they expressed sadness, condolences, said political differences don't matter at a time like this. Many condemned the violence itself, but also called for reflection on Kirk's rhetoric and the climate it contributed to. Not celebrating, but contextualizing, maybe.
That's a really important distinction. But outside the big political names, the public reaction online got pretty wild and, frankly, disturbing. There was that NYC comedian Rahul Pandya, sparked huge outrage with the video, supposedly saying something like, isn't it just so refreshing to finally see an assassination pulled off successfully this time? Sources couldn't verify if the video was real, but the idea itself caused a massive backlash. Calls to cancel him.
Exactly. And then you had the Twitch streamer Kai Cenat, his live reaction right in the middle of his stream. He was like, who died? Hold on. That's the guy with, like, the crazy it takes. They're some holy spoofy. What the fuck? He got assassinated. Saying...
Boy.
Yeah, that clip went viral, split the internet completely, raised all these questions about empathy, professionalism online, how streamers with huge audiences handle breaking news like this. It's not just about one person's reaction. It reflects this whole digital environment we're in.
It was striking how fast the speculation went wild online. What does that tell us about our information world right now?
It tells us that speed trumps accuracy, especially in a crisis. Misinformation or just unverified speculation, it just travels faster than facts can catch up. Platforms like Reddit, as sources highlighted, they became these intense bubbles of divided sentiment. You had some people expressing real sorrow for Kirk's family, genuine empathy. Then you had others openly celebrating his death, pointing to his controversial comments like calling empathy a made-up New Age term or his stance on gun deaths. Lots of talk about the irony of how he died given his Second Amendment views. But you also had people pushing back, saying celebrating any death is wrong, that it normalizes political violence, corrodes everything. It really shows what some call effective polarization, where our feelings about the other side are just so intense they can override basic human responses.
So let's pull back. What does this whole deep dive really show us about America in 2025?
Yeah.
It definitely highlights that stark idea. Once unleashed, political violence comes for everyone.
It really does. This is a tragic signpost of how indiscriminate political violence can be. It doesn't care about your ideology. Sources draw parallels, mentioning the killing of CEO Brian Thompson, different motives, but still a targeted killing of a public figure. Violence doesn't pick sides easily. The really chilling question this forces us to ask is, have we reached a point where political arguments aren't met with debate anymore, but with bullets?
That's deeply disturbing. It makes it sound like just being visible, being influential, is dangerous now.
That's what sources are saying. His death, Thompson's death, they illustrate this high price of influence. The idea that words have real-world consequences isn't just a saying anymore. Inflammatory rhetoric, especially amplified online, creates this volatile ecosystem. The line between what's said online and real-world danger is getting terrifyingly thin. It's not just about speech, it's about how algorithms push radicalizing content, potentially translating it into legal action. It's a dangerous feedback loop.
And that martyrdom playbook we talked about, used so quickly by some on the right, that has real political risks too, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's not just about rallying the troops. Our sources point out it's a tactic to shut down any critical look at the rhetoric itself. It uses the tragedy as a shield, basically. It makes it harder to have a real national conversation about what leads to this kind of violence, because you risk being accused of disrespecting the dead. It just digs the trenches deeper.
That makes sense. It seems like it really widens that gap between political sides. And this whole situation, it presents a challenge for everyone, right? This idea of a hypocrisy trap. What exactly is that?
Right, the hypocrisy trap. It's essentially when our moral outrage isn't applied consistently. So we might rightly condemn violence against people or groups we align with, but then maybe we stay silent or rationalize or even quietly approve when it happens to people whose views we despise, or to marginalize groups targeted by rhetoric. That inconsistency just kills moral authority. It poisons the well of public debate and makes the divisions even worse because it feels like there's no fair standard for empathy or justice.
When you put it all together, it really does paint a picture of America being on edge in 2025. Polarization, economic stress, a media landscape that's all over the place, misinformation running wild. It feels like the country is just primed for outrage. And then you hear about another school shooting happening concurrently in Evergreen, Colorado. It just underscores this constant drumbeat of gun violence, this grim reality we seem to expect now.
And connecting it all back, it reinforces a core principle. No matter how much you disagree with someone, no matter how harmful you think their ideas are, violence is never the solution. Bad ideas need to be fought with better ideas, with facts, with democratic debate, not with bullets. Assassinations don't kill ideologies. Often, tragically, they risk making martyrs out of those who spread them, and they shake the foundations of civil society itself. This event is just a terrible, potent reminder of that.
So we've walked through the shocking event of Charlie Kirk's assassination. We've looked at the intense, divided reactions online and offline and tried to connect it to these bigger, troubling trends of political violence and polarization in the U.S. It's a lot to take in. Leaves you wondering where we go from here.
It really does. And as you think about everything we've discussed in this deep dive, here's something to really chew on. We live in a society now where influential people are seen as targets, where even basic empathy feels like a political football. So how do we, collectively, demand something different? A different kind of leadership, a different kind of public conversation? What's our role, yours, mine, everyone's, and the role of the platforms we use in trying to find common ground, in choosing debate over demonization? How do we stop this slide into a reality where violence becomes the answer to words?